There are so many cruise tips for Royal Caribbean, and I bet a few of them definitely make you wonder if they really work or not. Now, I'm so used to relying on many of these tricks and better approach to things on a cruise that I take it for granted that they simply work. When I was getting back on Utopia this season after a fun day with friends, I told them, let's walk past the first set of elevators to the next set, and they thought I was crazy for it. Like, why are we going out of our way? But we waited no time to get one because the other elevator bank was empty. Tips like this almost seem crazy, but when you try them out, they work a lot better than you might imagine. So I came up with a number of tried and true cruise tips and advice that people might think sound weird, but they really do make sense when you're on board the ship. Like number one, you should order multiple entrees. In almost every restaurant on Royal Caribbean ships, you're welcome to order more than one entree. In fact, you probably should order more than one entree. And it sounds almost gluttonous because it just seems crazy to do that because we don't usually do that at home, but it really does work. Generally speaking, entree sizes are smaller on a cruise ship than you might find on land, and I definitely find this to be true in the main dining room. Ordering more than one entree is a really good idea to ensure that you're not hungry. Better yet, it's also nice to sample different dishes. One thing I love about cruising is you can go on these ships and try new foods. And because so much of the food is included in your fare, there's no wasted money per se by trying something and realizing, oh, it's not that good. In fact, a lot of foods that I eat every day now were foods I probably tried on a cruise ship first. And odds are there's going to be more than one thing on the menu that sounds good. In fact, your waiters are going to encourage this practice as well. Even if you hint at like trying to decide between the dishes, they're probably just going to recommend you get both or three. And this is why I really love to cruise. It's just so much fun to indulge in ones you love and try new foods. As a new cruiser, ordering more than one entree feels, well, unnatural. I rarely ever do that in a land restaurant. But once you realize it's commonplace on cruises, it becomes a great way to enjoy the very best that Royal Caribbean has. Number two, splitting your bed even if it's just you or you actually do usually sleep in the same bed as somebody else. When someone that cruised much more than me told me that splitting their beds when they cruise solo, I thought that was a crazy thing until I actually tried it out because it turns out they were right. Most Royal Caribbean staterooms come with a Royal King bed that can be separated into two twin beds upon request. When you're in an inside cabin, splitting the beds instead of keeping them together is a cruise hack meant to make the room feel bigger. I think the rationale is with the bed split, you get that walkway in the middle of the room between the beds, which is more useful than a sliver of space around the edges of the cabin against the wall. I've experienced inside cabins with beds split and together, and I really do think it works better with the beds apart. On newer Royal Caribbean ships, there are cabinets above the bed mounted to the wall, and it's definitely easier to access them with the bed split compared to, again, trying to do that little shimmy against the wall. You can ask your stateroom attendant to split or combine the beds at any time. Of course, separate beds may not be your idea of conducive sleeping conditions, but it will help open up the room for a bit more. Number three, staying on the ship while in port. The number one reason people book a Royal Caribbean cruise, according to Royal Caribbean, is for the destinations they visit. So it might feel wrong to want to not visit the places you're cruising to. But a lot of veteran cruisers will advocate skipping a port and taking advantage of a less crowded ship. I went on Icon in the season with my family for spring break and then later regretted we didn't actually spend more time enjoying what the ship has to offer because we were too busy in each port of call. Some people might struggle with what to do in a particular port because there isn't an activity or a tour that jumps out as a must-do. Staying on board during a port day allows you to take advantage of significantly less crowds, especially at the pool or for the top deck attractions. Water slides, zip line, rock wall, and all those other things are far less busy on port days. When you try it, it feels like a being home from school in a way because everybody else is doing something else, but the advantages are lovely for having the pools virtually to yourself. Next up, magnets add more storage capability. For years, I resisted the advice of so many people to buy magnets for a cruise cabin because I couldn't believe it really would help, but boy, I was wrong. Many people recommend bringing magnets to use in your cabin as a way to improve your storage options, and it's something you never consider at any land hotel. Part of the reason why magnets and not something else is because the walls in your cabin are metal, and you can't use adhesives or anything else that might damage the wall. So, getting a pack of heavy-duty magnetic hooks will last forever, and you can reuse them on future cruises. It allows you to hang up dresses, hats, bathing suits, shirts, and pretty much a lot of other stuff that would otherwise take up space in drawers or on furniture. I always just end up lopping everything onto the couch or a chair that's in my room, thus making it useless, but it's so much easier if you can hang it all up. I was really skeptical how effective it would work, but I gotta be honest, it really does do the trick. Another cruise tip that does sound weird, and even when I do it, I feel a little awkward about it, but really, once again, works, is taking photos of the crew member name tags. Royal Caribbean truly values customer feedback, and it's not a corporate cliche. In fact, a lot of cruisers often want to give their cruise line their thoughts, and the post-cruise survey is the best way to do that. But many times, I've gotten home from my cruise, sat down on my computer to do the survey, and realized I forgot the server's name in the pub, or what my assistant waiter's name was, or how to spell my stateroom attendant's name. In all these cases, it's really important to have their name so they can get recognition. When you recognize a specific crew member in the post-cruise survey, it makes a big difference in their career. Number one, by simply mentioning them, they're probably going to get some sort of an instant bonus. Maybe it could be like a day off or an hour off or a free excursion or some sort of reward for being recognized. But number two, and more importantly, when they come up for renewal of their contract or for a promotion or both, that's when Royal Caribbean looks into their history and says, all right, well, among other things, of course, were they recognized by guests? Because that's a really big thing. And it really does make a difference. So again, that survey is so important, and being able to spell their name or just remember their name altogether is really important. So I've seen cruisers taking photos of crew member name tags, and I thought that's silly. But in reality, getting home and not remembering that amazing bartender or cabana host name is silly on my part. So simply ask the crew member to take a photo of their name tag so it's easier to remember later for the survey. They'll be more than happy to let you do that, and it really does make a difference, and it's just so much easier. And lastly, I wanted to have a kind of controversial one, and that is not to bid to upgrade your cabin. So Royal Caribbean gives its guests the opportunity through the Royal Up program to bid for a stateroom upgrade. And it might work for some people, but I really think there's some issues with it that give me pause, and it's the reason why I actually don't recommend doing it, which again might seem strange because it's a program offered by Royal Caribbean, and it sounds really incentivized, right? You get to pay less for a better cabin. What's wrong with that, Matt? My first problem with Royal Up is just because there's an option to bid doesn't actually mean there's room to upgrade too. And I think a lot of new cruisers miss that detail. The reason why Royal Caribbean offers Royal Up in the first place is primarily to cover last minute cancellations. In the old days, if somebody canceled at the last minute, they'd be left with an unsold cabin that could have been filled with somebody else, and it was really difficult to fill that. And by the way, this happens all the time. It's also why Royal Caribbean oversells its cruise ships in a lot of cases, because people cancel all the time at the very last minute. So the bid you're making is really a backup option in case somebody cancels their cruise. But the more troubling problem, forget the first part for a second. The more troubling problem with Roll Up is should your bid be accepted, you have no control over where that cabin is located. More often than not, I'm going to say 99%, but a vast majority, 80%, 90% of the time, you're going to end up with a cabin that's unsold for a reason. Now, certainly in some cases, it's that last minute cancellation. But in a lot of cases, you're going to end up with cabins in a bad location. What I mean by bad location are ones that maybe have an obstructed view, or they're all the way forward or all the way aft, which sometimes can lead to more of a sensation of movement if you're sensitive to that and basically getting seasick. Or you could have noise problems, right? Noise from common areas, like your cabin being underneath a pool deck or something like that. At any rate, if your bid is accepted, Royal Caribbean assigns your cabin location, and it's out of your control as to where the room is located. For most people, that's kind of a problem, and especially when we advocate so much here on this channel about doing your research and finding a great cabin location. So it might seem strange to not go ahead with that Royal Up bid, but I think you have to go into it with both eyes open. But honestly, it's why I recommend actually not doing a Royal Up bid. So there you have it, some of the cruise tips that sound strange, but they really do work. And I hope some of these help you out in understanding why you should do certain things, or not in these cases, and take advantage of all of them fully. Let me know in the comments below, what's a cruise tip that truly sounds bizarre when you tell your friends or family that have never cruised before, but they really do work, they are effective. I'd love to hear some more. Maybe we'll have a follow-up video to this one. While you're down below our comments, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for watching. This has been Matt from RoyalCaribbeanBlog.com, and we'll talk again real soon.